Alrighty. We've got, playing against Kaigalichu here. Pretty easy redraw to start the Redling set off with here. Only one resource. So. Seems pretty good. Sepulchra Crypt Dust makes a threshold that we don't already have as long as we have a Necrotic, which we do. We get to curve into Wicked Webspawn. If we hit a third resource in 3 turns, we get to go 1, 2, 3, just right up the chain here. For the Magic players in the audience that are unfamiliar, Hex is a fully digital TCG that's similar to Magic. It is a great competitive scene. They have 2 $1,000 cash tournaments every single weekend that you can play from the comfort of your home. The constructed tournament has a $7 entry fee. The sealed tournament has a $15 entry fee that includes the 6 booster packs you need to play the tournament. Hex uses the digital design space to reduce variance in a lot of really nice ways, which I enjoy. As someone who enjoys playing interactive TCG games, the lower variance games are definitely my preferred choice. I played a little bit of Hearthstone's Limited. The CCG model is just kind of miserable. I just wanted to go buy a deck, and they you can't go buy a deck. On Hearthstone, you have to buy a bunch of booster packs and go through a bunch of skullfuckery to get an actual deck. Hex has a full buy-sell trade secondary market like Magic does, so I can literally see in my advertisements in the corner there, Hex Primal. I can literally just go fill a shopping cart at Hex Primal and hit checkout and give them my money, and they send me a deck list full of cards. So this card, Herofall, here is actually the reason why we led on this Matriarch of Flames as opposed to Underworld Crusader. You want to talk about powerful answers. So Herofall destroys an opposing troop, and then it gets rid of all copies of that troop out of the opponent's hand and deck. So if I would have played out this Underworld Crusader and my opponent hero fell it, I would have lost the second Underworld Crusader out of my hand. Now there's only one Matriarch of the Flames in my deck, so it isn't getting rid of any other copies, but if they hero fall this Crusader, I'd lose all my other Crusaders. So my opponent's activating their champion power here. Each player has a champion power, so my opponent for 4 charges, so when they've played 4 resources basically, they flip the bottom 3 cards of their deck into their discard pile, and then they return a card at random from their discard pile to their hand. They got the hero fall back to their hand, which is actually pretty bad for us. If you have a Magic background, Hex is pretty easy to pick up. I have an article here that's geared towards Magic players. Like a lot of digital card games, a lot of Hex will be familiar to Magic players. A lot of games build on Magic as a game. What is Redlings? Redlings, this is a red-black or a ruby-blood aggressive deck. Synergy aggro is a good way to put it. So this Ruby Ice here is a great way that Hex reduces variance. So this is a resource that I'm playing that has a mechanic called Fate Weave attached to it. And what Fate Weave does is it lets me stack my deck here, essentially. So because I'm an aggressive deck, I really don't need more than 4 resources. So I'm going to Seek Adventure, which guarantees the next card I draw is going to be a non-resource. My Crusader here, this is a good example of the digital design space for Hex. So there's this little glowing gem here on the side of my Crusader, and what that means is this card is customizable during deck building and while I'm reserving. So the customization that I have in my Underworld Crusader is speed, so it can attack the turn I play it. You could do things like have this card be Swift Strike if you have Ruby. If you have Diamond, it can Fate Weave when it comes into play or have extra defense. So the different thresholds or colors that you have determine which customizations you can put on these socketed cards. You choose which customization they start with when you initially build the deck, and then you can edit which customization is in them in between games while sideboarding. So my opponent's trading here, and you can see this card also says when it dies, I draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. So this card's really powerful, right? It's a 3/3 that has a customization in it, and when it dies, I draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. But this card comes with what's called a deck building restriction. So basically, my card has a bunch of one-ofs in it, if you look at the deck list there on the side, because my deck is required to have 10 differently named Underworld troops in order for me to be able to include this Crusader in it. That's why, like, this Matriarch of the Flames that we had was a one of. Yeah, blood is akin to black. So price is always a big thing people ask about when you're getting involved in a game. If you want to know, like, is it going to be too expensive, or like, is it within your price range? So Hex has a full buy, sell, trade secondary market, so the prices of decks will fluctuate a little bit depending on what's in demand. The average price of a competitive tier 1 deck in Hex usually ranges somewhere between $50 and $150 depending on the season. There are reasonable budget decks that you can play that are much cheaper than that. I keep a list of budget Hex TCG decks on my website in this link in chat that I'm going to go ahead and post. And in addition to those budget deck lists there, they start about, the first one's $20 and there's two other ones that are $40. Hex also is completely free to play if you want it to be, so you get cards just for signing up. And Hex has a single player campaign mode where you can grind the in-game currency and convert that into currency to buy cards with. Opponent played their 6th resource here. You can see I activated my champion power without talking about it last turn. So my champion power summons what's called a Dreadling, which is a 1/1 for 1 with speed that dies at end of turn for each different Underworld race among troops I control. So you can see both of these are necrotics. So that's one Underworld race, and this is a Venin, and this is a Shin Hair. So depending on how many different Underworlds I have, I get more things. Herofall of my own here to kill my opponent as you can. Crack my opponent for 6 here, down to 4. Go ahead and put this Blight Knight out. Opponent's in kind of a bad spot. Depends on what their leftovers are here. They could have a 7th resource and Eternal Seeker. They could have a Rotten Rancor. Rotten Rancor is a really powerful card. So it takes a troop from their discard pile and puts it back into play, and it battles one of my troops when it does it. So they're getting their Yazucan back here, which has lethal, life drain, and flight. So not only is this going to kill my 3/1 and bring them back their 3/5, but they're going to gain 3 health because they had life drain on that. This card, in addition to being a 3/5 with lethal, life drain, and flight, at the start of their turn, it takes a random troop from their crypt and puts it back into play. So if my opponent gets back to their turn with this card, they're going to get this Emperor's Lackey back into play. Seeker. I'm actually going to attack with this Underworld Crusader here. My opponent can block it and eat it for free, but I would like to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life because I could get another Herofall. They're pretty much stabilizing here, right? So this Deathseeker card has a mechanic called Scrounge on it, and it has 2 different Scrounge abilities. So Scrounge means I can void troops from my discard pile when I play it to give it a power up. So I scrounged once to give this Rage 1. So whenever this attacks, it gains a power permanently. And I scrounged 4 to give this Death Cry, put this back into my hand. So now if my opponent kills this, I get it back. This card's actually unique, which is the equivalent to legendary. So you can only have 1 copy of this in play at a time. Ugh. Alright, we're dead. So opponent got a Rotten Rancor back to their hand with their champion power, and they flipped over an Eternal Seeker in the red. So my opponent's playing a Reanimator-esque strategy. And what this card does, it's a 5/5 with flight. Then when it comes into play, they get to void all cards of the chosen number. So they're going to Rancor, kill my Blight Knight, and then void all my 1-drops. So we are pretty dead. Alright, reserves. Culmination of Blood's very good in this matchup. Gemborn Prowler's pretty good. Herofall's decent. Blight Knight's pretty terrible. The weird fog represents troop trauma, whether or not they can attack this turn. Nope, no planeswalkers. It's one of the big reasons control is playable in this game, because planeswalkers don't exist. I don't think I want Burning Ire in this matchup. If you're a data junkie like myself, Hex publishes all the data information about their game on a site called Hex PvP Tools. So you can see, like, as soon as this ladder match finishes, we can go on a website and look at every card that my opponent is playing in their deck. This hand's a little bit slow, but I think it's fine on the play. Boltwing Phoenix is a pretty powerful card, especially in this removal heavy matchup. It's a 2/2 for 2 with flight and speed. Then when it dies, I get to pick one. Either it deals damage equal to its power to all my opponent's troops, or it gets +1/+1 and comes back to my hand. How does the chain work? So this card here, you see it says quick action. So whenever anyone plays a card, there's a round of priority that passes back and forth. You see I hit continue or resolves when something comes into play. Oh, that was a sequencing mistake. So I played this ice out by default because I wanted to play my slow shard, but this Sepulchra Crypt Dust can only make a threshold that I don't already have, so I can't actually make my second ruby with this. Cottontail Explorer, yeah. So this card flips over the bottom 3 cards of my opponent's deck and gives them any resources that they find there. One of the things that's really nice about Hex is that because the way quick cards are templated, there's also quick troops, so anything in Hex can be quick. Although I don't think we have any quick constants or artifacts yet, but in theory I don't see why we couldn't. So yeah, one of the appeals to me, someone asked about Hearthstone earlier, one of the appeals to me to a game like Hex or Magic is like being able to be interactive in the game and like doing things on my opponent's turn and responding to their things, and Hex allows us to do that just like in Magic. So my Mortartrike Driver here, if I have another Underworld in my hand, it gets Rage 2 and Speed, so every time this thing attacks, it gets +2 power permanently. So again here, you see I don't have Ruby as an option because I already have Ruby, so I can't play this Boltwing this turn, which kind of sucks. So I'm gonna play this Underworld Crusader, and again, I have another Underworld Crusader in my hand, so hopefully my opponent doesn't have a Herofall for this. Oh, we do have a quick constant, you're right. Strangled my Mortartrike Driver, sure. It's very good if you could trigger the rage on it. So my opponent's rabbit this time flipped over 3 non-resources, so Cottontail Explorer does not get them anything back. This card's such a tilt to play with. I can't speak to the Vorthos in Hex, because the Vorthos isn't something I pay attention to in any of the games that I play. I'm just interested in quality gameplay. Maybe someone else in chat can talk about the Vorthos and a good, bad, or otherwise. And again, like, because I played that ice on 2 instead of the Sepulchra Crypt Dust, I just like have these 2 Boltwing Phoenixes I can't play out of my hand because I missequenced my resources. Jump blocks both of these, sure. It's kind of odd that they didn't hit their champion power last turn, because, like, putting a Battle Hopper into the bin, that's really weird sequencing. Alright, we get a second ruby, so we can play these Boltwings out next turn. I got a Strangle back, sure. They've not put an Eternal Seeker in here yet, so that's good for us. Okay, Cottontail got a Blood Shard. Next turn I get to go Ruby into Boltwing. Ugh! Got kicked in the dick. So this card costs 10, and for every troop in both discard pile, it gets -1 cost, and it makes the opponent discard their entire hand. So we have some culminations in our deck as well, so hopefully we're professional and rip one of those, but rip us. Yep, he has a Strangle. Yeah, good call. Burgle, I like having things. Don't tell my opponent they could leave me with no things. I am in fact a fan of my things. Actually, you can see here, my opponent has Underworld Crusader in their deck as well, and their excuse me, their Crusader has a wild modifier on it, so it has Skyguard and Steadfast instead of speed like my Crusader has. No, I said interactive decks are playable, Burgle. Both the decks we're playing are particularly interactive. None of the decks in Hex's current standard format are nearly as parasitic as the what's it called? The energy decks in Magic standard format. That card's pretty good. So, Bride of the Damned says whenever they gain a blood threshold, they give one of my troops -1/-1 permanently. And it says they have 5 or more blood thresholds. When something I control dies, they get back into play under their control. Pretty dead here, right? Yeah, let's just get to the next game. Next match. So, the Constructed Ladder in Hex is completely free to play on, so don't have to feel like I'm setting literal dollars on fire when we hit a bad matchup or run a little bit poor. Alrighty, so we're playing against McBombus this round, it looks like. So, McBombus is a 3-charge champion that summons a Bumblebot, 1/1 with flight and speed. Again, have a redraw on 7. I'm gonna keep this. We don't have a Necrotic, but I can play Blight Knight and Emperor's Lackey here. Hopefully we hit a Necrotic or another resource to play on too. So again, this dust has an allegiance on it, which means you have to have a particular race of troop in our hand in order for it to make a threshold, and I don't have a Necrotic here, so we don't actually have any Ruby currently. But again, I have 2 playable cards here, like I can play my Emperor's Lackey, and I can play my Blight Knight out. Oh, geez. Punished for not playing the Blight Knight out. So what Blight Knight does here, Blight Knight says whenever an opposing troop gets created, it gets -1/-1. And this thing, when it comes into play, it creates a 1/1. So if I would have played this Blight Knight out last turn, this Depth Crawler would have died when it came into play. Blight Knight does shut down my opponent's champion power, though, so if they create a Bumblebot with this while Blight Knight's still in play, the Bumblebot will just die immediately. So they need to deal with this Blight Knight before they're able to use their champion power. I should pick a battle board, huh? I think I'm blocking here. This thing isn't really attacking for a ton anyways. Yeah, it turns out too terrible. It's like the floor, I think. Mortartrike Driver's pretty good at racing here. We'll hit our champion power to make 2 Dreadlings. I'll go ahead and I'll attack with all of these. So this Emperor's Lackey starts as a 4/4 and it gets smaller every turn. And I can sacrifice a troop to revert it to its starting state. So I'm going to sacrifice one of these Dreadlings to turn this back into a 4/4. Get my opponent for 8 here. Awesome, Gym Class here. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Small mistake on my opponent's part last turn. They could have activated their champion power for Bumblebot post-combat, but they missed it. As I traded my Blight Knight inside of combat. Flickering Gobbler again. So this card, it starts out as a 2/2 with flight and speed. And then every time this thing attacks, it gets +1 power permanently. At the end of my opponent's turn, it either dies or goes back to their hand, depending on if they played an action in the turn. So they're actually going to lose this turn because they didn't play an action. So yeah, so it just goes away. So this card, when it readies, it does one of 2 things. It either gives my opponent a Valor, which is a +1/+1 modifier, or it turns itself into the Scarlet Swordsman, which lets it shoot one of my things when it attacks. I think I'm just going to go ahead and attack them for 8 here. They probably need to chump with this Depth Crawler. Right now, how to do it. They have a downloader on their website. If you go to Hex's website, you can download it, or you can search for it on Steam. Hex Shards of Fate on Steam. You'll be able to install it that way. So my Blamsmith has a scrounge mechanic like we looked at earlier. It goes ahead and it turns itself into this, this gets +3/+3 when I scrounge 3 troops. Yeah, it's a real video game, unlike other things. Heart's Whisper is interesting. Having a 3-cost draw to in a deck that generally has an aggressive slant seems kind of awkward. I hate Lazgar's Hoogle Poop. Welcome back, Big Kitty Fan. I agree. Lazgar's is in fact Hoogle Poop. Not a fan personally. I have to imagine Arena's gonna end up on Steam, right? Like, Magic Duels was on Steam. It's probably a lethal attack here. Does speed, yep, opponent packs it in. We don't really have any cards for this matchup, do we? I think I'm just clicking submit here. Like, Blight Knight's okay, but it also doesn't attack very profitably into cards like Thunderfield Seer or Warpsteel Shardsworn, so I feel like I'm just gonna leave it how it is and just click submit. Our deck's kind of proactive, so being a proactive deck and just like doing less is more with reserving is fine. Yeah, so this is just a good lesson in why Kickstarters are kind of a nightmare. So we're gonna redraw. God, just all the one shard 7s today. Sounds pretty good. So Hex was originally, if you look up the Kickstarter page for Hex had a lot of really lofty goals on their Kickstarter page, and they have not delivered on all of them yet. So there are a bunch of people that backed Hex for the MMO aspect. Originally, they were going to have, and they're still planning on at some point, having MMO features in the game, like a multiplayer RPG style thing. And the fact that so far all Hex has implemented is the competitive TCG stuff has left a lot of people kind of salty. There's also, yeah, there's also reviews from people that don't understand how the TCG model works. Like it's a good way to put it. The same TCG is pay to win nonsense that you hear on other games. Correct. Yep. Wow, that's terrifying. So seeing red gives this +3 power permanently, but gives it must attack every turn. That is, ugh. Well, let's get attacking, I guess. Oh, I think I was supposed to hit my champion power there. If I hit my champion power there to make a thing, I could have Wicked Webspawn plus Scrounge this next turn. Yes, this is Sirius's Redlings list that he's top 8'd the last 2 bashes with in standard. I guess I should say that. This is standard Redlings because we were playing Immortal Redlings yesterday. So my opponent's playing a bunch of stuff here on the back of the Cyclone Shaper card. Cyclone Shaper is a 2/3 with Flight that gives all of their actions -1 cost. All my opponent's 1 cost actions aren't costing them anything here. Place Wicked Webspawn out. Hit this. Yeah, and like, I'm gonna play one of these out, I think. So Zanya here, you can see her light up every time one of my troops attacks. So Zanya has a mechanic called Assault, where every time one of my troops attacks, she gets +1 rage. So I've had 3 troops attack while she was in my hand, so she's gonna get +3 power every time we attack. Am I dead here? Looks like I'm dead. This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then combat training is 10. Yep. Do I want extra hero falls? I'm boarding the extra hero fall. It's fine. This, we're missing Ruby, but this Blood Ice gets the Fate Weaver resource to the top of my deck, so hopefully it finds us a Ruby. If we find a non-slow Ruby this turn, we can go Lazgar's Bloodsworn into Slow Shard, second Lazgar's Bloodsworn on 3. Perfect. So, one of the things that Hex's Ladder does, minimum of 30 euros. It's not even 30 euros though. That metric is unrealistic. It's even true. 30 euros is, I agree, much less than Magic to set the bar low. Everything is cheaper than Magic. Saying cheaper than Magic is silly because everything is cheaper than Magic. But the cheapest budget deck on my list of budget decks that people get into Cosmic with is about 20 USD, which is about 17 euro. But so the thing about Hex's ladder system is that Hex's ladder system is designed to reward people for playing. It doesn't actually measure players' ability to win lots of matches until you're into Cosmic itself. So you can actually get into Cosmic with a very low win percentage in Hex. I think someone did the math and it's like, if you're winning a third of your games, you can get into Cosmic if you play enough games. Am I trading here? I feel like I'm trading here. I'm gonna trade here. Because as you climb the ladder on Hex, oh, that's a tilt. because as you climb the ladder on Hex, you get to earn free rewards as you play the ladder. So the goal of the ladder until you get into Cosmic is to just reward you for playing the game. Is it a 41% win? Did you actually do the math? It's something really low. Like it's little. So like when you hear people saying they're getting paired into people in Cosmic, that doesn't mean those players are the best players. It's not like legendary or whatever the top 100 thing is. When 100 thing is in Hearthstone, where like there's a very finite number of players that are making these highest rankings. Literally everyone that spends enough time and wins a little bit less than half their matches even can get into Cosmic in Hex. Because again, the goal of the ladder is to reward people saying, hey, you played Hex, here's stuff for playing Hex. Opponent's deck is really sweet. So the opponent's deck is not a meta deck or a deck that's popular in the format. And they are running us down here. I think I'm blocking this just to gain 5. Is that real? I don't think I can take 11 here. Like, I can't block these flight troops. Play this Pyresmoke Cabalist out. Get my champion power probably, and do not feel like we're in a good spot. Our deck, this deck isn't particularly interactive, and it feels like my opponent's linear game plan's a little bit better than ours. Into the unknown. Gross. We certainly have less players than Hearthstone, just like every game. Yeah, because Hex gives us all the data, you can literally go online and see how many matches that people are actually playing Hex. You don't have to like take anyone's word for how many people are playing or aren't playing Hex. You can just go to Hex PvP tools and see how many matches people are playing. If we hit a non-slow shard next turn, we can go Rustbucket Distractor, Commander P.R.O.M.P.T plus Champion Power, and hit for 10. But we're still just gonna die to these, right? Yeah, let's play one more ladder match, but this deck does not seem particularly good. I could see this deck being good against like Turbo PA and possibly the Ardent deck, but in general, in a vacuum, it doesn't feel like it's doing very powerful things. I would never expect to see Hex come to a phone. Hex doesn't limit the number of units you can have on your screen, so playing big board games of Hex on a 5-inch screen is going to be a frustrating experience. I would expect an official tablet release, because like a 10-inch tablet is probably not too unmanageable, but like honestly, board states get kind of big and obnoxious even on my 20-inch monitor sometimes. The Turbo PA deck taps out a lot. I don't think I'd want to play something like Dingle in it. Seems like a pretty mediocre card. I guess it counters the troop-based hate cards, but I'd rather just Transmogrifade those. I guess you can only play 4 Transmogrifades, but like, you definitely want to max on those. I think I'd rather play Into the Unknown before I play Dingle even, if I was going to play a clunky card that was an anti-hate card. I mean, like, the decks that are playing Eternal Seeker, Turbo PA just bodies. Magic Duels doesn't support cell phones, right? I'm pretty sure Magic Duels is only on tablets as well. Feel free to link me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Magic Duels is only tablets. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Slow Shard, guarantee our 3rd resource. Lackey into Crusader. Okay, interesting. I mean, like, once you bring it to tablet, it's pretty trivial to port it to a cell phone. Like, an APK that works on an Android tablet is going to work on an Android cell phone. Herofall, Mamper's Lackey, sure. I'm gonna play this Underworld Crusader and just start smashing. I have this Zanya in my hand, so I want to just like tick her all the way up. If Magic Duels is on the iPhone, it's certainly on it. Actually, they stopped releasing it on Android altogether, didn't they? You don't consider something or not consider something to be open source. It's either you have source code or you don't. There's not like middle ground there. Something is either factually open source or factually not open source. Can I pull the source code up somewhere on the internet? If yes, then open source. So the Wicked Webspawn here makes 2 Dreadlings whenever I scrounge something, and then this scrounges to make 3 Dreadlings, and then my champion power makes some Dreadlings too, so I think I'm gonna sacrifice one of these Dreadlings to this to give it rage. That way I can go ahead and attack with this. That way I can attack into this Radiant position. And then this Zanya just got really scary. So I attacked with a bunch of troops here. She has Rage 8 now. So every time this card attacks, it gets plus 8 power. Yeah, this deck is effectively an aristocrat style deck. It's a good way to think about it. So do I want to just shove Zanya down their throat here? This card's such a giant brick wall. It's a 5/5 with flight and life strain. And these Daybreaks are gaining them health every turn. I think I'm just shoving Zanya down their throat, because when Zanya attacks, she gives all the troops in my hand Rage 1. So even if they just, like, they're going to trade one of their 2 troops for this, probably the Radiant position. All of these cards still got bigger here. I'm trading with that one. Interesting. I'm glad they traded for that one, because now my Boltwing Phoenix can attack in the air. It is really good for us, I agree. Alright, sweet. Well, I think we're playing Wicked Webspawn plus Deathseeker here. So Wicked Webspawn again gives us troops whenever we scrounge. And this Deathseeker is going to scrounge twice here. Okay, sure. Alright, so slightly less Dreadlings for us. But still gonna go ahead and do this. So this scrounges twice, which gives Get the ability to come back and creates 4 Dreadlings with this. Unfortunately, we're like kind of just treading water here currently because my opponent has these Daybreaks in play that are gaining them 3 every turn. His Boltwing Phoenix will be able to start making headway in the air at least. That's pretty good. So this will scrounge 1, and when it scrounges, it makes something not be able to block permanently. I'm gonna go ahead and block that, make this not be able to block. Now we can go ahead and crack with my entire team. These guys got rage, so they gain +1 power permanently. Double blocked that, that's fine. They go to 6, play this Blight Knight out, pass the turn. Opponent needs a live draw here, and they are going to be dead on board. They're going up to 9, but I've got more than 9 power in play. Yep, dead. I'm bringing this Herofall and one of these culminations, I think. Again, I feel like my reserves don't do a lot in this deck. They've got a bunch of hate cards for Turbo PA and like the end sockets, and that's it. Seems okay. It's lacking a necrotic for this Crypt dust. I think I'm going to keep it on the draw. Perfect. Yep. This is ranked ladder. Standard constructed. Lead on the Emperor's Lackey here. Whatever I play is likely to die, and I'd rather have this die than the Wicked Webspawn. I've got double blood up here, so probably gonna get Strangled or Rockcast. Strangled's more common. Yep. What you got? Alright, their champion power makes a Daybreak, which gains them health every turn. And they're holding up removal again here, which makes the Boltwing Phoenix just so excellent. Because, like, if they don't want to kill the Boltwing, they're not going to get to use their resources. But if they kill the Boltwing just comes back to my hand, and they really didn't do anything other than prevent a couple points of damage. Yep, so they Herofall my Phoenix, but I'm just going to go ahead and pop it back to my hand here, so technically card disadvantage for my opponent here. It took my threat off the table temporarily, but Twilight Eclipse is a beast to race. This card says that deals damage to me for every constant they control every turn, and they gain life equal to that amount as well. Yeah, I think I'm just playing this. And then next turn we'll go Matriarch, Shard, Blamsmith, and then Champ Power most likely. So they are currently gaining 3 a turn, so this Boltwing is just like treading water for us. Zenthos Malice. Interesting. That's a weird one in Papa Goot. But Wicked Webspawn out here. For Hero falling my Matriarch, sure. I'm gonna go ahead and hit my champion power here to make one Dreadling. Making one Dreadling may seem a little anemic, but it actually puts the third troop in my discard pile so I can scrounge this Blamsmith next turn. They're gaining like 5 a turn now. So many health. Well, that's really aggressive. So they just paid 4 life to put 8 spider eggs in my deck. And when I draw a spider egg, my opponent gets a 1/1 unblockable spider. That's an insane draw. All right, let's play Underworld Crusader. Scrounge this, get some more, hit my champion power for 3 guys. Are they dead? It's pretty close to dead, right? Actually, exactly dead. So, the only reason the Yarna Crusader deck is competitive is because of the spider cards, and the spider cards are rotating. So, opponent got a little bit too aggressive there at the end, and put too many eggs in my deck and got themselves exactly dead. Because Underworld Crusader is great. Alright, I don't really think this deck is particularly good. We're gonna try something else here. Let's play a little bit with this deck. This is the let's update this.